In 1978, the Deer Hunter movie came out. Robert De Niro, Christopher Watkins. That's where we're heading today. Mingo Junction, Steubenville. You used to be able to take this road, old Route 7. This road would take you up there back in the old days. But now there's a new Route 7. But I'll show you a glimpse of some of the old road. Yes, we're going to go back in time. My goal is to give someone a sense of what it was like to live in this area in the 1950s, 1960s, and the 70s. What kind of job you might have, the area that you lived in. I would like to give people a sense of what it felt like. And they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to use these pictures and videos, and we're going to go to Mingo Junction, and we're going to visit the old abandoned steel mills. We're going to look at places on the railroad, coal mines. Yes, I want to give people a sense of what it was like to live on the Ohio River in the 1950s, all the way to the 70s. They were hard-working people, and they played hard. There was lots of bars, lots of churches. The steel mills were up and running, and you could even possibly work along the railroad or in the railroad as an engineer. Let's go in and take a look. This, I believe, is an old pumping house. Maybe pump water out of the Ohio River for the trains. Let's go in and take a look at this abandoned pump house. Give you a sense of what somebody's job might look like or what it might feel like. Kind of eerie in there now, isn't it? Can you imagine at one time maybe people put in 3 shifts there? Day shift, swing, and midnight. One thing about the coal mines operated a little different than the steel mills. Here you see a steel mill in Martin's Ferry being tore down. But in the coal mines, they worked 3 shifts. They called it the mad shift. Midnight, afternoon, and day shift. Did not matter what kind of seniority you had down in the coal mines. They were fair to everybody. One week you were on midnight, and the next week you were on afternoon. It would literally kill you. The shift, the mad shift alone would kill you. Now the steel mills were a little different. We're going to start our trip down in Martin's Ferry. This is the old Wheeling-Pitt factory. The Russians bought it out, took all the equipment, sent it overseas, and now they've shut down all our steel mills. It's sad, very sad. Here is what it feels like. This is what it looks like. To work 30 years in this factory, and then they are tearing it down. The steel was made in China now. What are your children going to do? Remember, I want to give people a sense of what it was like back then. Oh, it was hard work in these steel mills. And then there was many bars to go to. You didn't have to go to the bars. Some people were hard-working family men who would go fishing at the lakes, many lakes in the area. You could go boating on the Ohio River. But this is what an abandoned steel mill looks like. Go back and watch the Deer Hunter movie, 1978, when Christopher Watkins was getting off shift. He was getting off the shift of a factory just like this. We're also heading to Mingo Junction. Remember, we're starting our trip off down in Belmont County on the Ohio River. Martin's Ferry, one of the oldest towns in Ohio. They say Marietta is, but Martin's Ferry was unincorporated. For many, many years it was unincorporated, but Martin's Ferry is a little older than Marietta. And this is the last factory. This is the last steel mill in Martin's Ferry. So we're going to take Route 7 up. We're going to hit towns like Yorkville, which had a steel mill. Then we're going to go into Mingo Junction. But let's take a look at an old pile of slag right here. This is the equipment that the steel mill workers used. They might even be working with an ingot, a large bar of metal like this. As you can imagine, they had to use special equipment and special clothing around the furnace. So now we're going to look on the outside of another one of the steel mills. This one here again, this is a Wheeling-Pitt steel. Wheeling-Pitt went bankrupt. Now, the natural gas companies up from Texas, they're now storing waste water in these factories. The fracking waste water they're storing in some of these factories. Now, the people who worked in the steel mills and the coal mines and the railroads and all the jobs that supported those industries, they lived on many hollows and ridges all around there. You didn't just have to live on the Ohio River in the city. You go up those ridges and they have lots of hollows, they call them. You could live out in the country, and this is a good example. This road would take you up a hollow, up the hill, and many times when it rains, they flood. So I want to give people a feel of what it's like back there. Sure, yeah, you should have a four-wheel drive to be able to get through when it's raining and flooding these little creeks and these creeks and tributaries that go into the Ohio River. These creeks can get up there pretty quickly, and you need a four-wheel drive to be able to get out of some of these hollows. I'm just going to show the sights. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Many people are worried that the fracking, the natural gas people fracking, are throwing 200 different types of dangerous chemicals, and they're blasting it into the earth, into the water. So many people think that the water is going to be destroyed by the fracking and the natural gas people. That's something to think about. Now here we go. We're going to head up to Mingo Junction. I want to show this picture here. I want to give you a sense of when you pass these towns like Steubenville and Mingo Junction, all the steel mills look like this. They had that smoke coming out of them. Now this is just a power plant. This is a power plant on the Ohio River. It's using coal, but all the steel mills had that smoke puffing up there, and it was dirty and smelly and sulfur smell. You see those stacks there? Many sulfur smelling smoke would come out of there. And yes, it was filthy and dirty, but that's the way it was. And now they're out of business. So the air is a little cleaner, but you ain't got no job. That's the trade-off. The air is a little cleaner, but you got to go to Uncle Sam to get a handout. Now we're coming into Mingo Junction. This is where they filmed The Deer Hunter. And The Deer Hunter was filmed in many locations around this area, but let's head on into Mingo Junction. strange how many of these towns on the Ohio River all look the same. Now this would have been the factory when back when they were filming The Deer Hunter, probably filming in '77. The movie came out in '78. This is the factory that they were walking out of. Back then, these trains might have been working back then. So we're looking at a historic place here. Now, luckily, I believe the factory here, the steel mill, is still standing because I believe a group of people got together and tried to save that factory. That was in Mingo Junction. Now here we are, we're in Steubenville. The Mingo Junction is just a little south of Steubenville. And this is old train tracks going from Steubenville over to West Virginia. It could be possibly Weirton. That modern bridge over there takes you into Weirton. Now, Steubenville, Weirton metro area has about 125,000 people in the area, metropolitan area. But this is, like I said, this is Dean Martin territory. Dean Martin was born and raised here. Back when Dean Martin was here, back in 1940, the population peaked in Steubenville at about 40,000 people, right around close to 40,000 people. Today, Steubenville only has about 18,000 people. It's the biggest city in Jefferson County. So we started our trip off down in Belmont County, down by Bel Air and Martin's Ferry. And now we're in Jefferson County. Steubenville, an old steel workers sign. Lots of history here. People love antiques. That's one thing. I mean, you see these old buildings, they love antiques. Now, they had many movie houses back then, but most of the movie houses are gone. Sadly, they did not save the movie theaters. That's sad. But here's one they're trying to save. It's the Grand. You'll even see a picture of Dean Martin there in the window. The Grand Theater. This is in Steubenville again. They're trying to save this, but money is scarce everywhere. The New York bankers don't like to really share money down to us Ohio River people. They're a little greedy up there in New York. The Federal Reserve banking cartel, they just don't like us down on the Ohio River. They keep all that money to themselves up in New York. But hey, we're not going to get political here, are we? No, let's not get political. So let's see here. Now, if you come to Steubenville, I recommend you get this bread here. This bread was really good. I went in and got a loaf. I just ate the bread by itself. Unbelievable. It's homemade bread. They make this bread fresh there at Steubenville Bread. Go in there and get yourself a loaf of bread. And now this is the historic North 4th Street. Remember, Dean Martin lived and grew up in this town. He dealt blackjack. They had casinos. Back in the 40s, the bars and some of the cigar houses had casinos in the back. His name was Dino Crocetti back then. So Dino Crocetti would work blackjack, dice pits, the dice crap table. All the people from the Steubenville area ended up in Las Vegas, and they ended up being pit bosses in Las Vegas. Now here's one of the, they also had Weirton Steel up in Steubenville. But back to Vegas, I think the people started to leave Steubenville for Vegas right around in the 50s, 60s, and by 1970, the majority of the casino managers in Las Vegas were from Steubenville. Another sad sight, Weirton Steel, Weirton Steel's gone. Now we're going to go to this restaurant. I'll leave you with this restaurant. It goes back to 1923. Dean Martin would have ate in this restaurant when he was growing up. It has great food. It's a great landmark. Well, actually, before I leave you, there's a few more pictures I forgot to put in there. This is on top of the hill there in Steubenville, overlooking the river, and this is a pretty cool iron worker, steel worker statue. And I thought I would include a few more pictures before I let you go. Now, during the end of the video, we're going to be talking to some people in the Naples spaghetti house. It's a famous restaurant there in Steubenville. Like I said, D. Martin would have ate in there. Probably Jimmy the Greek. Jimmy the Greek's also from Steubenville. And here's some more cool pictures. I thought this was cool. The Coca-Cola, 5 cents everywhere. Steubenville News. So I'll show a few more pictures. And then after the clip of the Naples restaurant, I mean, no trip is complete in Steubenville without stopping into Naples and having some spaghetti and meatballs. But after that clip, I'll show you a clip of the coal barges on the Ohio River. And also I forgot the Mingo Junction sign coming into Mingo Junction. And I thought these are also historic markers. Used to be the Mingo Stadium. And like I said, at the end of the video, you'll see a couple towboats and the barges that hold the coal. Remember, on the Ohio River, the power plants work on coal. You use coal to burn the coal. And then here's a picture of Jimmy the Greek. In the Naples restaurant, Jimmy the Greek was from Steubenville. And it's like I said, no trip to Steubenville is complete without stopping in to this spaghetti house. Wonderful food. So I hope you enjoyed this trip up the Ohio River. This is D. Martin's daughter. And we have to remember our heritage. We have to remember our history. Thank you. Who's in this one?
That's his daughter.
Oh, this is his daughter?
Dina.
Dina. All right.
And this is another one of her. This is one of her.
Who was the original person to open this store?
Joe.
Joe?
Yeah.
What was his last name?
Delator.
Delator.
And there's the other one.
So they must open this. You remember him?
Yeah.
So, did they open this like in the 50s?
Maybe before that.
Yeah. My dad used to ride down here
1923.
on a train
23?
from up.
I think it was.
Are you from around
I
here?
thought they said
Bel
it
Air.
was
From, my dad used to
1923.
ride down here from Scio.
That's
He
what
worked
they
in the
told us.
pottery up at Scio.
Uh-huh.
And he and a bunch of guys he worked with
I
would
thought it
ride
was
down here on the
30s.
train to eat supper.
here.
And then they'd go, and that was on paydays, and then they'd go back home.
Was that in the 40s or 30s?
30s.
On the 30s.
Yeah.
So it was open.
23.
So 1923 is when they first opened.
Yes, we have shirts as well you can buy.
Oh, a famous place there in Steubenville.
Yeah.
A landmark, huh?
Definitely.